I had just lived through my own worst nightmare. The infamous Karen sisters from our neighborhood had taken over my yacht, turned it into their personal party stage, and live-streamed the chaos while it drifted 5 miles off the coast. And their excuse? They swore it was just a quick tour. But the truth was, the only thing drifting away was my patience. Let me rewind. The first thing that hit me wasn't the sight. It was the smell. Cheap perfume mixed with stale alcohol and a thick layer of arrogance. My yacht, my pride and joy, the Maxine, looked like it had lost a battle with a rock band. Plastic cups littered the deck, a sticky puddle of something dark clung to the floorboards, and broken glass sparkled near the captain's chair. Beside me, my wife Max stood silently, arms folded, her jaw clenched so tightly I thought she might break a tooth. Max doesn't need words to show anger. Her silence is worse than a storm. She gave a sharp nod toward the helm. Stuck to the polished wood was a single, long, fake eyelash. I didn't need a name. It practically shouted Karen Grant. Karen, our self-declared queen of the neighborhood, ran the HOA like her personal kingdom. Her sister Tiffany was her shadow. Less power, more desperation. Together they were a nightmare in pastel cardigans. I had only been gone 4 days on a business trip. 4 days. That's all it took for them to climb my locked gate, somehow use a duplicate key, and throw a full-scale rager on my yacht. "I'm going to end her," Max muttered, her voice low and dangerous. "I'll take those ridiculous plastic flamingos from her yard and smash every window in her house." I gently put a hand on her arm. "Breathe, Tiger, just breathe." Inside, my own anger was burning hot. Normally, I'm calm. But when it comes to family or what's mine, my fuse is short. And this wasn't just a party. This was Karen's way of sending a message. She could do whatever she wanted. Rules didn't apply to her. My dock, my yacht, hers for the taking. I stepped on board. My shoes crunched against shattered glass. Wine stains bled across the white cushions like Rorschach tests. Someone had even scrawled a name in sunscreen on the side panel. My fists clenched. This boat wasn't a toy. It was my dream. 10 years of saving, years of planning. For Max and me, the Maxine was our escape, and they had desecrated it. "What are you going to do?" Max asked, her voice sharp with expectation. She thought I'd blow up, storm over to Karen's porch, and scream until the whole block heard. But instead, as I stared at that fake eyelash, something colder settled over. Me yelling wouldn't fix anything. It wouldn't unbreak the glass or unstain the leather. It would only give Karen the thrill of knowing she'd gotten to me. I wasn't going to hand her that victory. "I'm going to clean it up," I said calmly. Max's eyes widened. "That's it? Just clean it up?" I shook my head. The mess wasn't the point. This was calculated. Karen wanted me to explode in front of the HOA, wanted me to play into her hands. Instead, I would flip the game. I picked up the eyelash between 2 fingers. Cheap plastic, fragile, fake, just like them. And then an idea crept in. A dangerous, perfect idea. "First we clean," I said with a slow, sharp smile. "Then we invite them back." Max stared like I'd lost my mind. "Invite them back? You've gone insane." "Oh yeah," I said, tossing the eyelash into a trash bag. "Next weekend, I'll invite Karen and Tiffany for a peaceful little sunset cruise. Just the 3 of us. My treat." Max knew me too. Well. She saw the smile on my face and realized this wasn't a peace offering. It was payback. The kind you never see coming. The kind that waits quietly until the perfect moment. That same afternoon, I walked to Karen's pristine house. Her lawn was flawless, her porch immaculate, her smug expression unshakable. Tiffany sat beside her, lazily filing her nails. They both looked up as I approached. "Can I help you?" Karen asked, voice dripping with condescension. I raised my hands in peace, smile steady. "Ladies, I just wanted to apologize." They exchanged a puzzled glance. Apologize for what? For the misunderstanding, I said smoothly. I heard there was a small gathering on my boat while I was gone. I'm only sorry I wasn't here to host you properly. You must have found it understocked. Their jaws dropped. This was the last reaction they'd expected. Instead of shouting, I was apologizing. Tiffany let out a shrill giggle. Oh, it was nothing, just a few friends. Well, to make it up to you, I continued, I'd love to invite you both for a private sunset cruise next Saturday, just us three. Wine, ocean breeze, no interruptions. Karen's eyes gleamed with triumph. She thought she'd broken me. She thought I was crawling back, desperate to please. To her, this was victory. Why not? She said with a practiced smile. That would be lovely. What she didn't realize was that she hadn't accepted an invitation. She'd stepped into a trap, one I was building piece by piece, and, like all stories, mine didn't start with the yacht. It started with a dream. I named the boat after my wife because both were sleek, strong, and the best part of my life. The yacht was more than just a purchase. It was my statement of freedom, my shield against Karen's constant reach. With my own dock, I finally had a sanctuary she couldn't touch, or so I believed. The very first day I brought the boat home, I noticed Karen watching from her porch. Her eyes narrowed into slits of envy. She hated seeing anyone happy without her control over it. Within a week, an HOA notice arrived. Special waterfront assessment, $5,000 from every dock owner for aquatic vegetation management. A joke. There wasn't a single patch of overgrowth in the water. It was a tax. Not for plants, for daring to have something she didn't. I fought it. Showed up with photos proving the waters were pristine. But it didn't matter. Karen had the votes. The board approved it without hesitation. From across the room, her smirk was unmistakable. Pure spite, disguised as procedure. It wasn't about fees. It was about punishment. A reminder that in her kingdom, I could never be free. That's when I realized peace wasn't possible. This would never stop unless I pushed back. The bogus fee was one thing, but the fence battle became the turning point. After swallowing the $5,000 loss, I decided to protect what was mine. I submitted plans for a taller privacy fence around my backyard and dock. Every measurement followed the handbook. Right height, right materials, right color. She had no valid reason to deny it. A week later, the denial letter arrived. Reason: aesthetic disharmony with the natural shoreline. Pure nonsense. It was her flexing power, denying me simply because she could. Calls, emails, even knocking on her door, ignored. She peeked at me from behind blinds like a cornered animal, knowing she had no legal ground but basking in the thrill of control. Max was furious. She can't do this! It's our land, our fence! We have to fight! She was right. But I knew her system was rigged. Fighting inside her rules was like trying to put out a fire with gasoline. So I broke the rules. I hired a crew and built the fence anyway, solid, 6-foot, flawless. By Monday morning, a bright red, unauthorized construction notice was nailed to it. A letter followed. Tear it down in 72 hours or pay $1,000 a day. If unpaid, the HOA would put a lien on my house, my home. This wasn't about grass height anymore. This was war. That's it, I told Max, rage boiling to the surface. She's crossed the line. But Max, calm even when furious, pressed her hand to my chest. Yelling won't help. We need a real plan, a lawyer. She was right again. We found one, an HOA specialist. After reviewing our pile of fines, denials, and threats, he almost smiled. She's broken half a dozen state laws. This is a slam dunk. We'll sue her and the board. The threat of court cracked Karen's mask. Suddenly she was sweet, cooperative, full of misunderstandings. In mediation, she called the fence denial a clerical error. She approved the fence, erased the fines, even dropped the waterfront fee. On paper, we won. But as we left, I saw it. the flicker in her eyes. Not defeat. Hatred. She'd been forced to bow publicly, and humiliation like that festers. I knew she'd never forget. She'd wait. She'd plot. Then came my big project, the one that had paid for the yacht, reaching its final stage. I had to travel for a week. The timing couldn't have been worse. I don't like leaving you here alone. I told Max the night before my flight. She tried to be brave. Don't worry. She won't risk another lawsuit. But I wasn't convinced. Karen was wounded, cornered, and cornered enemies strike hardest. Before I left, I locked everything tight. House, garage, dock gate, even a new padlock. Work consumed me, but my mind stayed at home. Every night I called Max. On day 2, her voice trembled. Karen's been driving by, slowly, over and over, 4 times an hour. My blood turned cold. She was circling. Day 3, Tom called. Chief, just so you know, the Wicked Witch and her sidekick were down at your dock messing with your gate. Took off when I spotted them. Keep your wife on alert. I told Max to call police if they showed again, but we both knew how that would go. They'd claim it was a misunderstanding, just a walk. Karen's position gave her cover, and then came the 4th night. Max's voice shook on the phone. They're having a party. My stomach dropped. What do you mean, a party? On our boat, on the Max scene. Loud music, shouting. I can see them from the yard. It's Karen, Tiffany, and half the neighborhood. Call the police right now, I ordered, though my voice came out too calm. It's trespassing, breaking in. They can't do this. I did, she said. Dispatcher said they'd send someone when available, but because she's HOA president, they said it's probably a misunderstanding. Told me not to confront them. A misunderstanding. My grip on the phone nearly cracked it. Karen had twisted her title into armor, committing crimes in broad daylight while the system looked away. Minutes later, Tom called again. Chief, you're not going to believe this. It's like a music video out here. Dancing on your deck, Tiffany just cannonballed off the side. Lost her top, I think. Karen's pouring wine into some guy's mouth. I've got pictures, don't worry. I thanked him, but it didn't help. All I could see was my sanctuary being defiled, my wife scared and helpless, and me, trapped hundreds of miles away. The party raged until 2 in the morning. When a patrol car finally drove by, it barely slowed down. No intervention, no protection. I caught the first flight home. Didn't pack. Didn't care. On the plane, the fury inside me changed. It wasn't fire anymore. It was ice. Cold. Sharp. Unshakable. When I reached home, Max's eyes told me everything before she spoke. The stress, the fear, it was etched into her face. At the dock, the sight gutted me. The boat wasn't just trashed, it was desecrated. My sanctuary turned into rubble. And then Max pointed to it, a single fake eyelash, stuck to the helm like a mocking flag. I stared at it, and I laughed, not joy. A low, unsettling laugh that made Max step back. What's so funny? She asked nervously. They think they won, I said with a grin sharper than glass. They think this was the end. But it isn't. This is the beginning. The gift I've been waiting for. She didn't understand. To her, it was damage and expense. To me, it was Karen's fatal mistake. She'd stepped outside bylaws, outside HOA cover. This wasn't neighborhood politics anymore. This was crime, and crimes have consequences. The fake eyelash wasn't her trophy. It was evidence. My quiet little sunset cruise plan suddenly felt too small. This wasn't about one boat. It was about tearing down her entire empire. And I knew exactly who to call. I started taking photos of everything. Every stain, every shard of glass. We need a record, I told Max. I already took pictures. Tom has video. Good, I said. We can't have too much. But the call I made next wasn't to the police, and it wasn't to my lawyer. was to David Chen, a man I trusted, a man I'd once gone to war with, and now it looked like I was about to again. David Chen had always been the quiet, sharp type, the kind of man who could walk into a room and already be 10 steps ahead of everyone else. After college, he'd joined the Coast Guard and eventually shifted into their investigative service, CGIS. His specialty? Financial crimes tied to the water, kickbacks with marine contractors, shady insurance claims, falsified invoices. While most people saw docks and seawalls, David saw paper trails. We hadn't been close in years, but we still spoke once in a while, just enough to keep the connection alive. I'd mentioned my HOA nightmares before, usually in passing. He'd laugh, finding it all bizarre. But once, almost offhandedly, he told me his unit had its eyes on several waterfront neighborhoods nearby. "There's smoke out there," he'd said. "We're just waiting to see the fire." So when I stood on my ruined yacht staring at the mess Karen had made, I realized something. This wasn't the beginning of my plan. The groundwork had been laid long before. Deep down, I'd always suspected Karen's reach went beyond mailboxes and fines. The sudden special assessments, the way she insisted on specific vendors, the HOA accounts no one ever got to see. It all stank of something. Bigger, the party wasn't the start of my war. It was the final proof. Karen wasn't just a petty tyrant. She was dangerous, arrogant, and convinced she was untouchable. And that arrogance was the very key to breaking her. I called David. When he answered, I didn't waste time. "It's me. I think I've got something you need to hear. Something big." I told him everything. The years of harassment, the threats, the bogus fines, and finally, the breaking and entering, the trespassing, the destruction of my yacht. I sent him the photos Max and Tom had taken. On the other end, silence stretched. Then David spoke, his tone sharpened. "And she's the HOA president?" "The one and only," I confirmed. "She thinks her title makes her untouchable." "That title," he said, "is exactly what makes this serious. An HOA president has fiduciary duty. If she's been abusing her position for personal gain, we're not just talking civil cases. We're talking federal charges, mail fraud, wire fraud, conspiracy." My pulse quickened. For the first time, revenge wasn't just emotional. It was strategic. "The party," David continued, "that's your entry point. Trespassing, vandalism, it's simple and clear. It gets us inside the door. Once we're in, we start digging into everything else. Contracts, bank accounts, money, flow." "And Tiffany?" I asked. "The sister?" "Yeah, she's the treasurer." David gave a low whistle. "You don't even know what kind of gift that is. 2 sisters, both with power over the money. That's the crack in the dam. Apply the right pressure, the whole thing collapses. That's when the Sunset Cruise idea resurfaced. Only now, it wasn't just revenge. It was tactical. "David," I said slowly, a new plan locking into place. "What if I hand them to you on a silver platter?" I laid it out. I'd invite them both aboard. We'd sail just far enough into federal waters. Then I'd stage an engine failure. While panic set in, David's team would arrive to rescue them. No lawyers, no polished facades, just 2 rattled sisters in the middle of the ocean. David caught on instantly. People talk when they're cornered, especially when they realize prison is on the table. The treasurer will crack first, I guarantee it. The real twist wasn't that I had a Coast Guard friend. The twist was that I was already part of an investigation, a confidential informant standing at the edge of a federal case. Karen thought her yacht stunt was intimidation. In reality, she'd just signed her own confession. I hung up with David, a cold certainty settling over me. Out on the dock, Max was still scrubbing at a wine stain with furious intensity. She looked up, face flushed. "I can't get it out," she said bitterly. "Leave it," I told her quietly. "It's not a stain anymore, it's evidence." Then I walked straight over to Karen and Tiffany's porch. I put on the act of my life. Slouched shoulders, a defeated smile, and the voice of a man begging for peace. They bought it instantly. Karen's smug grin as she accepted my invitation is burned into my memory. She thought she'd won. She thought I'd surrendered. But what she really accepted wasn't a cruise. It was a summons, a one-way ticket to justice, and I'd be the one steering her there. By the time I returned home, grim satisfaction was buzzing through me. But the moment I saw Max on our porch, arms crossed, eyes burning into me, my victory dulled. She knew me too well. "Okay," she said, before I could open my mouth. Her voice was low, steady, and sharp. "What was that? What are you really planning?" I tried to brush it off. "I'm making peace. Turning the other cheek. Don't lie to me," she cut in, stepping closer. "Not about this. I saw your face coming back. That wasn't peace. That was a predator closing in. I've seen you angry. I've seen you frustrated. This is different. This is cold." She was right. This was the crossroads. I could lie to the woman I loved, or I could pull her into the storm with me. "You're right," I admitted quietly. "It's not peace. It's about finishing this." We sat at the kitchen table, the same table where we'd planned our life together, where laughter and tears had both left their marks. And I told her everything. About David, about the investigation, about Karen's corruption, about the cruise that would bait them into federal waters. As I spoke, I watched her expression shift. Shock, then fear, then understanding. "So this isn't just about the boat," she whispered. "This is real, like jail time real?" "Yes," I said firmly. "Karen's not just a bully. She's a thief. She's been robbing us for years. The party just gave us the opening we needed." Max wrestled with it. Fear battled loyalty, but she was stronger than she gave herself credit for. Slowly, her posture straightened, the fire I knew so well returning to her eyes. "Okay," she said at last, her voice steady. "What do you need me to do?" Relief surged through me. I wasn't alone. "I need you to be my alibi," I said, "and my witness. On the day of the cruise, I need you visible. Go to the community pool, talk to people, make sure—" Max listened carefully as I explained the final piece of the puzzle. "Remember," I said, "the key is how generous I look. I'm the guy trying to smooth things over, trying to be civil after everything. When they don't come back, you'll be the worried wife who calls the Coast Guard." Her eyes widened. "So you're going out there, alone, with them?" "I have to," I said. "And I'll need Tom. He's going to be my eyes on the shore." That evening, I walked to Tom's house. I laid out the plan, keeping the federal sting out of it. I just told him I was going to teach them a lesson, and that the Coast Guard might be called in. Tom's eyes twinkled with mischievous delight. "You're telling me you're going to strand those two harpies out at sea? Chief, this is your masterpiece. Shakespeare with sunscreen. Count me in. I'll set up my telescope. I'll document the whole glorious meltdown." His enthusiasm was oddly comforting. Tom saw the humor, the rough poetry in it. For him, it was neighborhood justice. For me, it was the heart of a much larger trap. Still, his simple take helped me focus. Underneath the federal case and strategy, this was about giving two bullies a taste of their own medicine. The choice had been made. There was no going back. We weren't defending ourselves anymore. We were taking the fight to Karen. We'd crossed the line, stepping from survival into offense. It was dangerous, maybe reckless, but as Max squeezed my hand with quiet resolve, I knew we were united. This wasn't revenge anymore. This was about reclaiming peace, our home, our dignity. And if that meant luring two corrupt tyrants into the ocean, so be it. The day of the cruise arrived hot and dazzling, perfect weather for a reckoning. I prepped the Maxine like a stage before curtain. Every chrome handle gleamed, every deck board scrubbed. I stocked a cooler, unshackled the anchor chain, and coiled it neatly on deck. One trick in the engine room, a loosened fuel line, easy to reset, would turn the twin diesels into dead weight when the time came. The wine-stained cushions I left untouched, a subtle reminder of their arrogance. Max played her role flawlessly. From the community pool, I could see her chatting, laughing, even bragging a little. Her husband was taking Karen and Tiffany out to sea to bury the hatchet. She sold the story of my generosity to every ear within reach. It was brilliant cover, across the lawn. Tom had set up his bird-watching gear. His giant telescope, normally fixed on ospreys, now tracked open water. He raised a salute. My little team was in position. At exactly 5, the sisters arrived, dressed for a magazine cover, not the ocean. Karen wore a floppy sun hat and linen, pants that probably cost more than my first car. Tiffany, in a revealing bikini and sheer wrap, walked like the dock was her runway. Karen smirked. Well, you cleaned her up nicely. I forced the smile, stretching it until my cheeks ached. Only the best for my guests, I said, bowing them aboard like royalty. They immediately began poking around, appraising the boat as though shopping for it. I cast off, steering us toward open water. Havenwood shrank behind us. The sisters chattered about vacations, new HOA rules, and how hard it was to find competent help. I nodded, smiled, and guided us further into the deep. When I offered, "Drinks," they demanded Chardonnay. I handed them bottled water instead. Karen sneered but drank anyway. 45 minutes later, the shoreline was a faint blur. No boats in sight, perfect. You know, I said, turning from the helm. There's one thing I forgot to thank you for. Karen arched a sculpted brow. Oh? And what's that? The evidence. The smile drained from my face. Their laughter faltered. I pulled a small plastic bag from beneath the console, a single fake eyelash inside. I held it up. This was stuck at the helm. Yours, Tiffany. Her skin blanched. Karen's jaw tightened. I don't know what you're talking about. Karen snapped. Oh, I think you do, I said softly. And so will the police. And my friends in the Coast Guard, they love cases like this. As if rehearsed, the engine sputtered. One coughed, then both died, leaving only the sound of waves slapping the hull. I slipped the loosened fuel coupling into my pocket like a trophy, Tiffany shrieked. What's wrong? Engine trouble, I said casually, walking aft. It happens. I untied the dinghy, easing it alongside. What are you doing? Karen's voice cracked, rising in pitch. You can't just leave us here. Of course not, I said smoothly, climbing into the dinghy. I'm going for help. Their panic deepened as my outboard purred to life. I looked back at their stricken faces. You're not a very good criminal, Karen, I called out. You got arrogant. You left trails, witnesses, evidence. You thought you were untouchable, but you're just a thief. I tossed a warm bottle of rosé onto the deck. Refreshments. Might be a while. As I pulled away, their terror was delicious. Gone was the smug superiority. Now only raw fear remained. You can't do this, Karen screamed. I'll ruin you. You already tried, I said over my shoulder. This is me ruining you. Half a mile out, I cut the dinghy's motor and drifted, watching the yacht with its panicked passengers silhouetted by a brilliant sunset. Their shouting, their pleading, their threats. It was a symphony of desperation. I checked my watch. David's team was due any minute. Then I saw it. A dark shape slicing across the waves, floodlights blazing. A siren wailed. The sisters' nightmare was arriving. But the sea was shifting too, winds sharpening, clouds stacking on the horizon. A storm was coming, and for Karen and Tiffany, the real storm was only just beginning. Coast Guard, hands where we can see them. The command split the night. Tiffany's hands shot skyward so violently she nearly smacked herself. Her sobs echoed across the deck like a child caught red-handed. Karen, ever the pretender to power, tried clinging to her last shred of control. "Our boat broke down," she snapped, voice trembling. "This man," her finger stabbed toward me in the dinghy, "he abandoned us." David didn't even glance her way. A sheriff's deputy vaulted onto my yacht with practiced ease, followed by a man in a sharp gray suit. No life jackets, no comfort, just authority. That's when the night shifted. The real collapse began. The sight of grim officers storming the yacht shattered Tiffany's composure completely. Her years of privilege, her loyalty to her sister, it all dissolved under the weight of fear. Her acrylic nail shook like a compass needle as she pointed at Karen. "It was her!" she screamed. "She planned it all! The party, the books, everything. I didn't want to. She made me do it!" Karen's jaw dropped, disbelief carved into her face. Betrayal had never been part of her script. In Karen's world, people obeyed, especially her own sister. The man in the suit, Miller, a state financial crimes detective, stepped forward with the patience of a hunter who knew the animal was already cornered. "She made you do what, miss?" His voice was gentle, coaxing, and then Tiffany broke. The dam burst. Words tumbled out in panicked torrents. "She made me balance the HOA books, the vendors, the kickbacks. She bought her new car with dock money. The ledgers, they're not in the office. They're hidden at her house, in the den, inside the G volume of the encyclopedias. I swear, I swear." My jaw hit the dinghy floor. I had only hoped to pressure them, to maybe pry open a crack. Instead, Tiffany was delivering the entire blueprints of their empire. The trap hadn't been stranding them. It was isolating them. Fear did the rest. Karen's face drained of blood, her tan looking grotesque under the flashing lights. The queen mask slipped, revealing a snarling animal. "You pathetic fool!" she hissed at Tiffany. "You've destroyed everything." Her words were poison and a confession. Miller's eyebrows lifted. David caught the cue. They had her. Finally, David looked at me, his eyes equal parts warning and awe. "You're unbelievable," he mouthed. I shrugged innocently. Handcuffs clinked like music as the sisters were read their rights. Karen's glare burned into me, not just hatred, but a promise. A storm of vengeance still in her, and then, as if nature itself joined the script, the heavens opened. Fat rain splattered down, blending with salt spray and Tiffany's tears. Thunder rolled. The bottle of rosé I'd tossed earlier thudded back and forth like a drunken metronome. Tiffany slid across the wet teak, shrieking. The scene was chaos. Rain, sirens, flashing lights. And in the middle of it all, officers calmly taking my statement. Surreal. The plan had worked beyond imagination. The lies had crumbled in minutes. But as Karen's silhouette disappeared into the sheriff's boat, I knew. This wasn't the finale. This was only the key. Her secrets still waited, locked inside her house. The return to Havenwood was a blur of rain and engines. The dock was crowded, neighbors pressed under umbrellas, faces glowing in emergency lights. A circus, with Karen as the unwilling headliner. Detective Miller met me as I tied up. "Your friend Tiffany was very cooperative," he said dryly. "We've got her statement, and now a warrant for Mrs. Grant's house. You should come as a civilian witness." My pulse kicked. The final act had begun. Max's face in the crowd steadied me, worried but proud. Tom stood beside her, binoculars dangling like trophies. The war correspondent of suburbia. We marched to Karen's house. The once intimidating fortress, now just another suburban shell, police cars crooked in the driveway. Karen, cuffed, was dragged along, stone-faced, jaw-locked, fury radiating from her. The den smelled of polish and control. Leather encyclopedias lined the walls, pristine, unread. "The G volume," Miller ordered. An officer pulled it free, opened it, and gasps filled the room. The book was hollow. Inside, 2 slim black ledgers. Miller flipped through them, smiling like a priest uncovering scripture. Well, well, falsified invoices, kickbacks, illegal fees, all here in neat handwriting. That's when Karen snapped. With a guttural scream, she lunged, not at Miller, not at police, but straight at me. Her cuffed hands clawed the air, inches from my face. "You ruined me!" she shrieked. Officers yanked her back. She thrashed, spitting venom. "I'll sue you! He kidnapped me! He held me hostage!" Miller just sighed. "Mrs. Grant, we have your sister's confession, these ledgers, and a dozen witnesses, even video, courtesy of your neighbor." "There," Miller said, nodding toward the window where neighbor Tom was shamelessly peeking in. Tom gave a small, unapologetic wave. At that moment, the fight drained from Karen completely. Her body sagged, and the officers had to hold her upright. Reality had finally crushed her. It was over. Her little empire of beige mailboxes, arbitrary fines, and fear-driven control had collapsed in front of everyone. Years of intimidation vanished in an instant, leaving her nothing more than a disgraced fraud. The neighbors, once terrified of her, now stood on the wet lawn, watching silently as their self-proclaimed queen was revealed as just another criminal. The humiliation cut deeper than any verdict. They led her outside, placing her in the back seat of the squad car. As the door slammed shut, she pressed her face against the glass, her eyes locking with mine. The hatred remained, but now it carried something else, an unspoken promise, a promise that the war wasn't over, only changing battlegrounds. But tonight victory was mine. The battle had ended, not with fireworks, but with the quiet thud of a car door, sealing away the tyrant who had ruled Havenwood for far too long. The flashing lights receded, leaving the street bathed in silence, broken only by the steady rainfall. 6 months later, autumn arrived. Golden leaves drifted across the manicured lawns, and for the first time in years, the air felt calm. Karen Grant had been tried, convicted of fraud, embezzlement, and theft. The judge, noting her arrogance and complete lack of remorse, gave her a sentence long enough to ensure no one in Havenwood would ever face her wrath again. Tiffany, having betrayed her sister to save herself, walked away with probation, restitution, and the burden of her name. Word spread she'd left the state entirely. The HOA itself was dismantled and rebuilt. Every stolen dollar, traced through Karen's meticulous ledgers, was returned to the residents. Neighbors opened envelopes containing thousands in reimbursements. Money. They had been forced to pay under bogus rules. It felt like a karmic refund. And in the ultimate twist of irony, the neighborhood voted neighbor Tom in as interim HOA president. His first decree: no more rules about mailbox colors or lawn ornaments. His second: use leftover funds for a massive community barbecue by the beach. From the deck of the Maxine, anchored just offshore, Max and I watched the celebration. The boat gleamed, new cushions, spotless decks, engines humming contentedly. The sunset painted the water gold, the kind of peaceful evening we'd once dreamed of, but nearly lost. Max leaned against me, glass of wine in hand. "It's finally quiet," she whispered. And she was right. The constant weight of fear, the dread of another threatening letter or fabricated fine had lifted. "Do you ever think about it?" she asked softly. "About what you did? Leaving them out there?" I stared at the shoreline, at the joy on faces once burdened. I thought about the question that had haunted me all along. How far will a man go to defend his own? Now I knew. He'll go as far as he must. He'll bend the rules, get his hands dirty, and use arrogance against itself. He'll stand at the edge where justice blurs into revenge, and stay there. Was it pure justice? Maybe not. There was revenge in it too. Seeing Karen's panic had been satisfying, and I wouldn't deny it. But justice had been served. Not just for me, but for the entire community. I don't regret it, I said firmly. Not for a second. It wasn't only for us, Max. It was for Mr. Henderson and his roof, for every single person she bullied and robbed. I've learned something through all this. To protect your peace, sometimes you have to be willing to fight for it. You can't let tyrants win just because the battle is messy. The real lesson isn't revenge, it's standing up, drawing the line, refusing to be a victim. I took a sip of my beer and looked at Max, her face glowing in the fading light. Our home was safe. Our future was ours again.